Welcome to video 9. This video is titled, Why Paul Refuses Both Categories. By now it should be clear why I no longer describe myself as a hierarchical complementarian, and why I am not an egalitarian either. But that still leaves a deeper question. Why does Paul himself refuse these categories so consistently? It's not because Paul is vague, and it's not because he's inconsistent. It's because both categories start in the wrong place. Hierarchical complementarianism begins with the problem of domination and asks how authority can be exercised safely. Egalitarianism begins with the problem of power and asks how it can be neutralized or removed. Paul begins somewhere else entirely. Paul begins with creation restored through Christ. This is why Paul's letters feel so difficult to classify. He does not ask who should rule. He does not ask how power should be distributed. He does not ask how risk can be minimized. Instead, he asks how redeemed life becomes visible. Paul's ethical reasoning works upstream. He reasons from origin, not control, gift, not entitlement, posture, not power. This is why Paul keeps returning to Genesis 1 and 2, not as cultural background, but as theological grammar. In Genesis 2, relational order does not depend on power, and gift does not require control. Christ restores that creational order, and this is the reality Paul proclaims and reasons from. That conviction reshapes everything. It reshapes how Paul speaks about marriage. It reshapes how he speaks about the church. It reshapes how he speaks about authority, submission, love, and glory. And it explains why Paul frustrates both sides of the modern debate. To hierarchical complementarians, Paul sounds dangerously non-authoritarian. To egalitarians, Paul sounds stubbornly asymmetrical. That's because Paul is not trying to solve the problems these categories are designed to address. He is not managing the fall. He is proclaiming its judgment. Paul does not offer a safer version of domination or a flatter version of order. He offers a different way of being human, the restoration of God's intended way of being human, a way shaped by self-giving love, by receptive trust, by relationships ordered without control. This does not mean Paul ignores abuse. It means he names domination as incompatible with the gospel itself, not merely as a misuse of authority. And it does not mean Paul erases difference. It means he refuses to treat difference as a threat. So when we ask, is Paul a complementarian or an egalitarian? The most honest answer is neither. Those categories are downstream. Paul is working upstream, at the level of creation, Christ, and visible relational life. If we insist on forcing Paul into our categories, he will continue to sound confusing or inconsistent. But if we let Paul set the terms, something else happens. The debate quiets, the categories loosen, and the text begins to speak again. In the videos that follow, we'll return directly to Paul's letters and trace this grammar carefully, in Ephesians, in 1 Corinthians, and beyond, not to defend a label, but to learn how redeemed relational life is meant to look when Christ, not the fall, governs the question. Across these videos, I haven't been arguing for a new position. I've been trying to show that Paul is not operating inside the categories we keep trying to give him. Hierarchical complementarianism and egalitarianism both assume that power is the organizing problem of human relationships and they offer different strategies for dealing with it. Paul doesn't take either route. He works from a different starting point altogether, one shaped by Genesis 2 and re-established through Christ. If that's right, then the real task is no longer to decide which modern framework fits Paul best. The task is to read Paul carefully on his own terms, and to trace how this relational grammar actually functions in his letters. That's what the next series will do. From here on, we'll slow down and work directly with the texts themselves.